Surprise, surprise, Donna Adelson wants to get the hell out of jail because it sucks. She was complaining about the food. She was complaining about sleeping. It's horrible. I mean, if you're in your 70s and 80s, I can't imagine being in jail comfortable. Even right now when I'm in my 30s, I'm like, I need that mattress. I need access to my medication and all that stuff. Like, no way for me. But here's the thing. Donna probably thought that she was gonna get away with it. Either being in Vietnam by now, enjoying her bowl of pho, or she thought that her and her entire family, Charlie Adelson included, were gonna get away with murdering Dan Markel. So she's looking to have her trial in June, and initially it was supposed to be last year, but there was issues with her attorney, conflict of interest, Charlie Adelson, yeah, all that stuff. So you guys haven't seen the videos on that yet, definitely check it out. She is looking to have her trial June of this year, but for the time being, she wants out. There's gonna be a bond hearing coming up soon, and she talks about how, well, she's not getting good sleep, you know, like it really sucks being around people who are loud, and then it's like uncomfortable. She's getting bullied by other inmates, and the food in jail is disgusting. Yeah, what did you expect the food in jail was gonna be? Thought it was gonna be like some gourmet meal or something. But you know, you guys remember that call that she had with Charlie? This was about a day after Charlie was convicted. He called Donna Adelson. This is where Donna was talking about possibly ending her life or maybe fleeing the country. And apparently the phone call was still recorded 8 minutes after, when Donna thought she hung up the phone, but she didn't. Let's talk about her incarceration issues. So Donna was arrested November 13, 2023, about a year and a half ago. The trial in this case is scheduled to begin with jury selection June 3rd, 2025. Incarceration issues. Medical issues of Mrs. Adelson. Mrs. Adelson is a 75-year-old female with typical medical issues of aging, exacerbated by the conditions of confinement. Yeah, I don't doubt that. She's got hearing problems that are compounded due to a medical issue that cannot be addressed by medical personnel at the detention facility. Prior to incarceration, she saw an ENT every 3 to 4 months who have her extremely small ear canals cleaned with proper equipment, as general flushing will not resolve her issue. There's severe pain from pre-existing medical condition in her back and legs that cannot be relieved by medical care available at the detention facility. Excruciating pain in her left shoulder, down her arm into her hand as a result of an injury received during an attack by another inmate at the detention facility. When did that happen? Within the next few months, Ms. Adelson began to have experiencing shortness of breath that reached levels of where others comment about hearing her struggle to breathe. Undersigned counsel had actually had difficulty hearing phone communications with Ms. Adelson because her breathing is so labored that it interferes with the phone reception. On a visit to the medical unit with other inmates in February 3rd, 2025, even at the medical personnel asked what the loud breathing noise was, and other inmates pointed to Mrs. Adelson. That doesn't sound good. Oddly enough, though, when Mrs. Adelson was having a medical visit with the doctor at the detention center prior to February 3rd, 2025, the doctor refused to even listen to Mrs. Adelson's chest because that was not the reason we are here. You will need to get another appointment with the PA. Oof. On Saturday, February 1, 2025, in the early morning hours, Mrs. Adelson was in the bathroom area and accidentally bumped up against a washing machine. Oh, cutting herself on the right arm on a rusted metal bar on the machine. Hold on a second. I was going through Donna Adelson's case files where the state that was yesterday. State amended demand for discovery to include state motion witness, LCJ medical records from 12/26 to February 14, and then LCJ photos of washer unit 5. I was wondering what the state was asking for, and I was thinking, well, maybe this is like because looking at the dates, it looks like these are like maybe her incarceration times. So maybe they think Donna Adelson was like up to something, but like now that I'm seeing they want photos of the washer unit, I wonder if they are just investigating into Donna's claims, or are they going to say that she did it to herself, that she's faking all this with the breathing stuff? Whew, I wonder. This was followed yesterday, by the way. Let's continue reading. So she cut herself on the right arm on a rusted metal bar on the machine. The nurse was in the pod, so Mrs. Adelson showed it to the nurse, who told her how bad it looked, but said she had no Band-Aid. The nurse told her to wrap it up in toilet paper so the bleeding would stop. Oh, okay, then fill it out with a sick call form to request a Band-Aid. Okay. And turn it in with the night nurse. That would be around midnight. Turning it into with the night nurse would mean she would get a Band-Aid the following morning. Unfortunately, the nurse had no sick call forms for Mrs. Adelson to complete, so there's no way to make a request. Finally, Sunday morning, February 2nd, 2025 at 10 a.m., a sergeant sent a Band-Aid down for Mrs. Adelson and also provided sick call forms which Miss Adelson, I keep saying Miss Adelson, it's Mrs. Adelson, filled out requesting that each of her medical issues, including the cut, be addressed. Monday, February 3rd, Mrs. Adelson was taken to the medical unit where her wound was cleaned and received a tetanus shot. I was wondering about that because, if you be touching like that rusty metal, gotta make sure you got your tetanus shot. Mrs. Adelson needs medical care that simply cannot be obtained at the detention facility. That sucks. She needs an appointment with an ear, nose, throat specialist, an orthopedist, a physical therapist at a minimum. She remains incarcerated pending trial. The defense will prepare motions to seek permission from Mrs. Adelson to receive the care outside of Leon County Detention Center and to obtain a court order for each appointment to be scheduled. So they're going to have to transport her back and forth. Okay. Now, what are the issues with the attorney-client privilege? It's impossible for Mrs. Adelson to engage in attorney-client privilege information via phone communications while incarcerated. Okay, why not? How come? I mean, everyone else is doing it. Within the pod, more than 60 other inmates have an opportunity to listen to her side of the conversations. It is difficult at best for attorneys to hear Mrs. Adelson when she speaks due to the enormous amount of background noise caused by static phone connection issues on the tablet, and noise from the inmates in the background. Mrs. Adelson had to get out onto her bed and cover her head with a blanket so she can hear counsel and counsel can hear her. On one recent occasion, when Mrs. Adelson ended the phone call and pulled the covers off her head, there was a guard standing over her listening to her phone call. Do they not have like a little private room or something like that to do these phone calls? Or are these just like addition to the regular like meets with your attorneys and like scheduled phone calls? Another inmate reported that the guard stood there listening for several minutes of the call. Once Adelson ended the call, guard proceeded to search all of Ms. Adelson's items and discarded the headphones she uses to listen to the recorded materials related to her case. I wonder why. I mean, we're only getting one side of the story. All right, here's what I'm telling you guys. Lack of sleep. Yeah, I bet you sleeping there probably sucks. The schedule maintained for providing food and medication to the inmates at Leon County Detention results in Ms. Adelson sleeping on average 2 hours each 24-hour period. Hell, that's horrible. And many times much less than that. A typical day for Mrs. Adelson is as follows. Nighttime medical distribution from 11:30 to 1 a.m. Sleep commences after inmates quiet down, 1:30 a.m. Awaken for breakfast, 3:30 a.m. for breakfast? Wait, what is his schedule? Jeez. Lay awake in dark on bed until lunch is served. 9:30 a.m. What is this? Get lunch at 9:30? Lay awake in dark on bed until lights on. 3:30 p.m. Is she just having sleep issues then? It's not like they're not giving her a chance to sleep. It's like she's like laying there, but she just like can't sleep. I'm assuming. I don't know if that's even true. Possibly leave bed and walk around in circles for exercise depending on who the guard is. Dinner is served at 6 p.m. Well, you're telling me lunch is at 9:30. Dinner is like 9 hours at 6 p.m. Oh my God, I'd be so hungry. What is the schedule? Back on bunk until nighttime. Medication, 12 a.m. Physical abuse. In addition to her initial period of incarceration, previously complained to the court where Mrs. Adelson was placed in a cell with a mattress on the floor where she had to lay without clothing for more than 50 days. Mrs. Adelson has been physically abused and threatened with abuse throughout her incarceration at the detention center. Now, to understand the nature of some of these issues, it would be helpful for the court to be aware that the shower and bathroom areas of the pod at the detention center have no security cameras and are not manned with guards for safety of inmates. One first act of physical abuse by another inmate took place while Adelson was showering and was of sexual nature. She thought she was alone in the area while she was showering when all of a sudden she felt an inmate run her hand, oh God, up her entire spine from just above her buttocks to the area of her neck. Ooh, that's creepy. The inmate also asked Mrs. Adelson if she liked it, and in response, Mrs. Adelson, very frightened, began to scream, which caused the aggressor inmate to leave the area. Mrs. Adelson did all she could to avoid this woman during the remainder of the inmate's incarceration at the detention center. Most recently, Mrs. Adelson was standing in the area facing her bunk bed. Another inmate slammed into her from behind, knocking Adelson into the frame of the bed. This was very painful to Mrs. Adelson. Yeah, she's like tiny and frail looking. When she turned around and asked why the woman had done that, the inmate replied, "Because you're a fucking killer." Whew. The most severe and frightening incident to date, however, occurred several months ago and again was in the bathroom area of the pod. Based on the records obtained, the incident occurred on or shortly before October 7, 2024. Adelson was bending over to brushing her teeth with her right hand, leaning on the sink with her left hand. All of a sudden, she felt her left arm being jerked violently behind up her back. As she was yanked in that direction, a much larger inmate told her that she knew Mrs. Adelson got canteen and that from now on she was going to get a canteen for her too. Oh my God, this is exactly like in the movies. When Adelson tried to ask why she would do that, she was told by the large inmate that she was going to do it. Adelson was scared for her life and what more physical harm would come to her if she didn't comply. From that point forward, this aggressive inmate has instructed Adelson what canteen packages she wanted ordered on a weekly basis. Afraid for her life, Adelson began telling her husband to order the packages each week. She never told her husband why, and he just assumed Adelson wanted the food for herself. Why wouldn't she tell her husband? Why would she wouldn't tell anyone about this? Because meals provided by Leon County Detention Center are disgusting. Oh, so she's saying, I have questions actually. Because I wonder if she did indeed order food for herself because she told Harvey that the food was disgusting. That was recorded. However, after the fact, either she's changing her story saying, well, actually, that's not really my true opinions. It's because someone told me to do this and I was only doing it for survival. I mean, this could be true, though. I could totally see this happening. Adelson looks weak. She's old. She's weak. She's rich. I mean, that's a target right there. Adelson receives her own canteen purchased through the normal jail site. She also receives 2 separate packages from the site ordered by her husband. She keeps the additional canteen items in the area of her bunk bed, and either the aggressive inmate comes to get the item herself or sends someone else to get the items that she wants. This particular incident caused terrible pain to Adelson on the day of the incident, and she has continued to this day. She has requested medical treatment from the jail for this pain on numerous occasions, but has gotten no relief. It has caused excruciating pain in her left shoulders that shoots down her arms, and sometimes she has even tingling in her fingers. Since the court had the original motion by the initial counsel, some jail staff, including supervisors, continue to take action which can only be intended to punish Adelson. For example, inmates are provided a locked storage bin to store commissary/personal items. Adelson was only allowed to bring 2 additional bins for her legal materials. On more than one occasion by different officers, Adelson's legal materials have been tossed out of her storage bin, resulting in hundreds of pages being tossed out or left out of order. Guards have commented to the presence of other inmates about Adelson's perceived wealth, which led to additional requests by other inmates for Adelson's commissary. Something tells me she wasn't able to go to the prisons for rich people, right? Or maybe that's like a thing after you're arrested. Is there a jail for rich people? Solitary confinement. Adelson has attempted to seek medical care for her short pain, shortness of breath, and other health issues for several months. Her requests for appointments have routinely denied or not properly addressed. However, on Monday, February 3rd, where she finally was taken to the medical unit and all of her issues, including the cut, was being addressed, the PA asked about the pain in the left shoulder and arm and how it started. Adelson disclosed how she felt attacked. She had been attacked by the fellow inmate. Was she at that point just like feeling brave enough to disclose this? Or I wonder what the state attorneys are going to say about this. Because I wonder if like this is true or if there's like some fuckery going on here by Adelson. Thereafter, without the knowledge of Mrs. Adelson, the medical unit reported the attack to the jail personnel. Within a short period of time, 2 supervisors of the jail came into the annex and told Adelson to roll up her bed and get her bins because she was being removed from the pod. They explained to Adelson had done nothing wrong and took her to a room to question her about the attack. Adelson was very reluctant to disclose any information because she truly fears retaliation by the aggressor and the affiliates within the jail. Okay, you can see that. Which, of course, she has many that Adelson has already had to deal with. Adelson finally disclosed all the facts, including the extortion by the aggressor and how her husband unknowingly satisfied the demands by purchasing 2 extra packages of canteen each week, so to spare Adelson of physical harm. Note, from October 7, 2024, Adelson has spent $1,150 on this separate canteen. The jail supervisors advised Mrs. Adelson that was her responsibility to protect her, and the only way they can do that is put her in solitary confinement. Yikes. So therefore, since Monday, February 3rd, Adelson has been in a cell by herself. She's only allowed outside of her cell on Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 1 hour in the morning, and Tuesday, Thursdays for 30 minutes. Damn, we can just there all the time. When she's released, she has no contact with anyone else and can only use the time to shower, walk on the rec deck, or watch TV. Other than that, she's on full complete lockdown in a 6x9 room with a bed, toilet, and a sink. Note, the toilet's in full view of the window and the door, which is approximately 4 foot high by 30 inches high. Thus, the staff of the detention facility has determined that the only way they can adequately protect her from future harm is to house her in solitary confinement. Therefore, Adelson is being punished for having been physically attacked, injured, and extorted for the past 4 months. No risk of harm to the community. Adelson is a 75-year-old woman with physical impediments with no prior criminal history, no disciplinary issues during her entire incarceration for the past 14 months. There are no allegations that she personally engaged in any conduct herself that resulted in harm to anyone, including Mr. Morgell. Not a flight risk. No way they put this on here. How? Why? What is their explanation? Not a flight risk. Adelson has no passport. True. Has been placed on no flight list. Okay. Thus cannot schedule a flight bound for any domestic or foreign destination. I mean, do any of her friends have like a private jet or anything like that? I don't know. Maybe she got monies. Her husband's 80 years old and would relocate to live with Adelson in Tallahassee, Florida from release through trial. Okay, so now we got to segue to the next one because Donna wants to have, I don't think the entire phone call, but she probably wants to have the part where she thought she hung up to be suppressed. In that phone call, however, Donna did mention how she was going to possibly flee to another country and then possibly end her life. And so her saying that now, like, oh, look at me, I'm not a flight risk. That's very interesting. Anyways, let's talk about this other motion. November 7th, Charlie Adelson called his mother, Mrs. Adelson, from the jail. The recording of the call is 25 minutes and 29 seconds in length. At the beginning of the call, an automated voice notifies the recipient of the call that the call will be recorded and it is not a private call. The recipient of the call is required to acknowledge the call be recorded prior to speaking with the incarcerated individual. At 8 minutes, 5 seconds of the call, Adelson realized that Charlie Adelson is no longer at the phone. At that point, Adelson reasonably believed the call had ended and she puts her phone down without hanging it up properly. At the time of the call, Adelson was present in her home with her husband, attorney Susan, Mrs. Brotman's husband, Richard Chagrin. After Charles' end of the call dropped, continued speaking with Ms. Brotman, Mr. Chagrin, and her husband. Question here is whether the consent the recipient of the call gives for the call to be recorded terminates the inmate's side of the call ends. Typically, when two people are on the phone call having a conversation, or at least one of the parties using a cell phone and in one end the call drops, the call terminates. Certainly, one can consent to their communications being intercepted by accepting a call for an inmate. However, that consent must necessarily be limited to consent to record the wire communication between the inmate caller and the one who consents to the wire communication being recorded. Once the inmate side of the call ceases to function, the inmate is no longer on the call. The recipient of the call believes the call is over. The recipient's consent for the call to be recorded must also be terminated. Yeah, you got to do it physically. You got to physically hang up. Now, at this point, Donna has already been placed in protective custody. I don't know if that is still considered solitary confinement. Now, we're going to have her hearing in a couple of days now where the judge is going to go over this bond hearing request and then for her to maybe be out on bond while she awaits her trial for June. Although, I don't know. I doubt they're going to give it to her, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'll see you guys for the hearing next week. And then also, you guys, I'm telling you guys got to watch the Karen Reed video that we posted recently because it was a huge cliffhanger. The judge was so flustered that she had to take a 30-minute recess. She came back and she was still her breath was still heaving a little bit. So you guys have to watch it. It's crazy, okay? Part 2 of the Karen Reed hearing is going to happen next week. I think either on Tuesday or Wednesday. I forgot what date they agreed on, but I'm going to be live streaming that. Guys, I will see you guys there. And then we'll be covering Donna Adelson hearing as well. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend and take care, y'all. Bye.